Good evening, everybody. It's very good to be here. Thanks, Elidio, Ian, Felipe, João Romeu, Lucas, and David. This is the Behavioral Economics of Global Affairs. We are on our fifth week, I think. Yeah, a little bit late in our schedule, but still, this is not like a sprint. This is more like a marathon. So we're going to take our time and we're going to just move on as we are ready to. Okay? All right, guys. So here's what we have for tonight. We're going to be talking a little bit more about the prospect theory. Then we're also going to have a look at the list of exercises. Maybe we should start by those, okay? We're going to check some of the exercises that people fail to get the right answer. And we are also going to start talking about nudge, which is a very important part of behavior economics, the principles of behavior economics. Has any of you ever heard about this expression, nudge? Nudge. Let me write this down here in our chat. Nudge. Nudge. Anyone? Yeah, but then again, this is not a big deal. Nudge, the translation for that is something like empurrãozinho, uma ajudinha. So we're going to talk a little bit about this. Nudge is a very important part of one of the most famous parts of behavior economics nowadays. É uma parte muito importante da teoria, dos princípios de economia comportamental que vem sendo difundidos mundo afora. Alguns livros best-sellers sobre o assunto. And then we're going to have a look at that, okay? We're going to start discussing nudges tonight, but we're probably not going to finish tonight, okay? We're going to have another session for that. Okay, any questions before I start? Anyone would like to make a comment, a suggestion, express some sort of concern? Alguém gostaria de fazer alguma pergunta, algum comentário, alguma sugestão, expressar aí algum tipo de preocupação, se for o caso? No? All right, so let's move on. We are already 12 people in the room. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for participating. I hope you are all at home. Everyone is safe from all the rain and the traffic. It's not easy to get home these days in Recife, but hopefully you are all at home, dry and well, okay? All right, so let's start. So if you have just got into the room, let me just explain what we're going to see tonight. We're going to have a look at the list of exercises just to make sure that you guys have another chance to understand some of the things you made mistakes or something like that. Then we're going to talk a little bit more about the prospect theory, which is fundamental, one of the pillars of behavior economics. And we're going to start discussing nudge. Então, primeiro dar uma olhadinha nas questões que mais pessoas erraram na lista de exercícios, depois terminar o assunto de teoria do prospecto ou da perspectiva, e por fim, começar a discussão sobre nudge, que poderia ser traduzida como empurrãozinho, uma ajuda para que as pessoas tomem uma decisão melhor. All right, so please raise your hand if you have a question. Last chance. Otherwise, I'm going to just move on. Oh, I have a question here. Will we only have our first grade when we finish the third forms? Not exactly that, Mateus. Let me explain how this thing works. You guys will have to finish 4 lists of exercises. When you've submitted 4 lists of exercises, I'm going to take the lowest grade and I'm going to drop it. So let's suppose that for you, the first list of exercises, you didn't do well. For the other one, you did fine. So we're going to take the other 2, 3, and 4, and we're going to average them out, and that's going to be your first grade. Ok? Então é só ao final da quarta lista que você vai saber qual foi a sua nota de primeira VA, porque a gente vai jogar fora a mais baixa, seja lá qual for, e tirar a média das outras 3. All right, good. Now, actually, before I start, let me just remind you, let me go over here. Let me share with you the whole thing here. And let me show you this thing. What I wanted to show is Tibiga. Let's see. Oh yeah, I think this is the one. Yeah, there you go. Now, if you go to our classroom website, you can already access the next set of class notes, okay? So you can just go there and download it. And we're going to start using those tonight, but we still have some way to go with the former set of class notes, okay? All right, then. Now let's have a look at the exercises, okay? So first, let me just show you that the performance of the class was very good. Check this out. Aqui estão as notas de vocês, tá, gente? A gente teve 5 pessoas tirando nota 10, 13 pessoas tirando nota 9, 5 tirando nota 10, 13 pessoas tirando nota 9. Depois a gente teve 4 pessoas tirando nota 8, 6 pessoas tirando nota 7, uma pessoa tirando 6, uma pessoa tirando 5. So, that is pretty good to me. I'm very happy. Let's hope that you all keep doing this well, okay? Okay, so, but I realized that for some questions, many of you made a mistake, especially those starting at question number 6. And then we're going to have a look at those, okay? All right, so let's go down there. Here we go. Question number 6 goes like this. Check the picture and indicate among the options which one best describes what is being visually represented, ok? Verifique a imagem e indique entre as opções qual descreve melhor o que está sendo visualmente representado. So what you guys can see there, you can see a guy with his hands on his head and looks like he's thinking only about problems, crisis, stress, taxes, impostos, I don't know, bills. It's all bad news, right? So we have to look at those 4 options here, and we have to try and understand what is being represented there. Now let's have a look at each of the options. First one is bandwagon effect, which in Portuguese is efeito manada. Well, efeito manada happens when someone does something and everybody does the same thing. I don't see that here. So that's not the answer. The second one, it's called ambiguity effect, efeito ambiguidade. What is that about again? Well, efeito ambiguidade é um viés cognitivo que a gente tende a fugir de escolhas que pareçam confusas. Se tiver várias opções, uma delas tem muitos detalhes, muitas nuances, a gente tende a pegar a mais simples. All right, so I don't see that here. I just see the picture of a guy really stressed out, thinking about problems. The third one, the third option is attentional bias, viés atencional. All right, so what is the description of viés atencional? It goes like this. When you keep thinking about bad things, your perception of reality is affected by these most recurrent, most frequent thoughts. Então, a sua percepção da realidade é afetada pelos seus pensamentos mais frequentes. Seus pensamentos mais frequentes são sobre morte, destruição, tristeza, abandono e, enfim, decepção. Well, when you look at reality, all you see is deception, is frustration, is loss. Okay? So we end up seeing what we have been thinking about. Então, essa é a descrição de viés atencional. And that, in my opinion, is the best option. So you should have marked this one. But just to make sure, there's a fourth option here, which is confirmation bias. So what is confirmation bias? Viés de confirmação. What is this about? Well, viés de confirmação is the problem that we all tend to look at reality and we tend to analyze phenomena with our preconceptions. We tend to look for evidence that will confirm what we think. A maior parte das vezes, quando a gente olha para um problema, a gente tenta encontrar evidências que vão confirmar o que a gente já pensa. So this is a problem. We all have this problem. The way to deal with this problem is to trust a friend or someone, a third party, someone who could come and discuss with you what you're seeing. Então, a maneira da gente ser isento, da gente conseguir analisar de maneira objetiva a realidade, muitas vezes é tendo uma terceira pessoa, tendo um amigo para nos ajudar a não cairmos no nosso próprio viés de confirmação. All right, so the option here was supposed to be attentional bias. Check out again this picture. So the guy is all stressed out. All he thinks of are crisis, taxes, payments, stress. So it turns out that when he opens his eyes, he will only see problems, okay? All right, so this was question number 6. Let's have a look now at question number 7. Check the picture and indicate among the options which one best describes what is being visually represented. Verifique a imagem mais uma vez. Escolha nas opções aqui mais se assemelha ao que você está vendo representado. Now, this one was so easy because in the illustration you can see the word bandwagon. So you should have guessed that the first option here, bandwagon effect, was the correct one, and that is true. But then again, let me just remind you what bandwagon means. It means that we feel uncomfortable if we are making an option or if we are expressing some opinion that is not shared by many people. We don't like to be the different person. We don't like to be the outsider or someone who is so different from everyone else. It is just not comfortable for us. So we tend to join whatever the majority of people are doing, okay? Então aqui é o efeito manada, a gente está vendo aí que a maioria das pessoas ficam no ponto de ônibus onde as outras já estão, ninguém tem coragem de ir para o outro. All right, so this is question number 7. Let's have a look at question number 8. Again, check out the picture and indicate among the options which one best describes what is being visually represented. Once again, you have the same options here, guys. So at some point, you have already marked the correct answer for the previous ones. So you're going to end up getting a correct answer, right? Now, just take a look at this picture. So you have the word yes written all over the place. But then comes again and somehow connect the dots in a certain way that the word no will show up. Now, it is quite obvious that in this case, we are talking about confirmation bias. In confirmation bias, it doesn't matter if reality explodes right in front of you, trying to say yes, 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 yes. You somehow may find a way to identify a no answer there. So When these things happen, you are fighting reality. You're fighting your own natural observation. And that's what we call confirmation bias. Confirmation bias is one of the most important biases that we have in our whole discussion, guys. Come on, look at this. We have science because we need science to protect us from confirmation bias. You know, scientific experiments, they hold you, they somehow suppress this tendency to affect or to impact your own observation. So we have to be very objective. We have to restrain ourselves and be very careful how we register what we're seeing, right? Okay, so confirmation bias is the answer for question number 8. Question number 9 goes like this. Check out the picture again and indicate among the options which one best describes as being visually represented. Now we have different options. So what we see here in the picture is a lady and looks like she has to make a decision. She will either have the cookie now or she will look good, look fit in the summer, which apparently is coming. So we all have been there, right? We all have made those sort of calculations. Should I eat that? Should I just enjoy it? Or maybe I should think about the future, right? Or something like this. Right. So what we have here is like a choice. And it turns out that it's very hard for us to sacrifice today in uh, trying to reach some success in the future. The sacrifice today, it's always harder to make if your reward will come up only later or much later in the future. Então, o presente ele tem um apelo muito forte para nós. É difícil sacrificar o presente, mesmo que a promessa de ganho no futuro seja muito boa. The name of this is the present bias, right? Viés do presente. A gente tem dificuldade de sacrificar o presente em nome de benefícios futuros. And the final one, question number 10, again, you have to check the picture and indicate which one best describes it. So what we have in the picture is like an illustration. This guy is saying, we knew that already. Seems like we didn't need to do the research after all. So you understand that this is a theme. These guys have made some sort of research and they ended up finding results that were predictable. Now, let's have a look at those possibilities here and try to see which one could fit that description. First one, the present bias, well, nothing to do with it, right? Present bias is about sacrificing today in order to gain in the future. We don't see anything like that in the illustration. Second one, framing effect. What is framing effect again? O efeito enquadramento é que a gente tende a dizer sim ou não para uma pergunta dependendo da maneira como ela é preparada, da maneira como ela é enquadrada. All right, so yeah, that's not the point here. Then the third one comes and says, hindsight bias, viés do ponto cego. Now, what is the description of viés do ponto cego? It goes like this. After all war, when we already know something, we have the impression that that thing was obvious. But if you went back in time and we remember how hard it was to make a decision, we will see that the future is never obvious, or very hardly ever obvious, okay? So this is the one we're looking for. This is the one we call hindsight bias, viés do ponto cego. É fácil considerar as coisas óbvias depois que elas aconteceram. Antes, é difícil apostar que alguma coisa vai acontecer. Just to make sure that the final option here has nothing to do with the illustration, let's just check what is gambler's fallacy. Gambler's fallacy is falácia do apostador. What is that again? Now, to understand gambler's fallacy, the best way is to remember the example. Suppose I have a coin here, tem uma moeda na minha mão. And then people ask, head, tails. And, eu quero cara ou coroa. Eu jogo para cima. Let's suppose that I have thrown this coin a few times, and I don't know, maybe 5 times. All of them, head was up. Então, 5 vezes seguidas eu joguei a moeda e saiu cara. Now, if I ask you, what is the chance that by throwing the coin again, it will be head? A maioria das pessoas pensa assim, se já saiu 4 vezes ou 5 vezes seguidas, cara, então a próxima deve ser coroa. Aumentou a chance de ser coroa. Well, it turns out that the chance is still 50%. But we tend to think that somehow the next toss will have a lower probability of coming up as head. A gente tendo mandado 5 vezes a moeda e ela saído 5 vezes cara, a gente acha que a probabilidade de sair cara uma sexta vez é menor. Mas não é, continua sendo 50%. Tudo era apenas uma coincidência, mas a gente acaba associando eventos que são independentes, a gente tende a associá-los e atribuir probabilidades a eles. All right. So those were the questions in which some of you made mistakes. I would like to know if anyone has a question about those. Should I go back? Let me check here your faces. Érica, Eric, Aimee, Douglas, Rayane, Henrique, Gilberto. Anyone has a question? All right, then. I'll keep moving. Please raise your hand or type something in the chat if you have a question, okay? O João perguntou aqui. Professor, no caso do aluno não receber o e-mail de feedback da lista, o que se faz? All right, João, here's what happens. Sometimes the email went to your account, but it ended up classified as spam. Então, às vezes, a mensagem vai para tanta gente, mas na hora que chega na sua caixa de correio, ele vai para a caixa de spam. You have to check out there if it is there. But no worry. Independently if it is there or not, just send me a message by WhatsApp, by email, whatever you prefer. Just send me a message and I will tell you what your grade was, okay? And I will try and send again the results to you. Então, o João perguntou aqui, gente, se ele não tiver recebido o resultado da lista de exercícios, o que ele faz? Eu falei, olha, pode me mandar uma mensagem, eu mando para você ou a nota ou a própria lista. Faço um envio individual só para a pessoa, tá ok? All right. Any other question? Yes, go ahead, Matheus.
O senhor consegue me ouvir?
Sim, perfeitamente.
Então, ontem, na aula de economia quantitativa, o professor estava falando algo parecido com isso sobre as casas de apostas, que tem uma probabilidade e que, assim, pode cair várias vezes em um número par e, mesmo assim, a probabilidade seria a mesma. Mas como é que eles conseguem garantir que a casa sempre vai estar ganhando?
Como que eles conseguem garantir que a casa sempre tá, que a banca sempre está ganhando, né? Como é que uma casa de aposta sempre ganha? Eles entendem muito bem a psicologia humana. Dentro de um cassino, dentro de uma casa de apostas, essas pessoas são, antes de tudo, especialistas na cognição humana. Sometimes they didn't even have study or anything like that. They haven't gone to college or anything like that. But they observe very, very carefully how gamblers behave. And they end up creating circumstances in which they know you're going to make mistakes. They somehow create the kind of a trap for you, and it works just fine. So here we have been discussing some of the things that lead people to make mistakes. Right now we are talking about gambler's fallacy, right? Now think about this for a while. Now I have this very good example. I will explain to you in English first, then I'm going to talk to you in Portuguese, just to make sure you guys understand that, okay? Now think about this. Suppose that I go to this roulette, right? Eu vou lá para aquela roleta. Then there's an option there that you can choose black or white, or red or black, or something like that. There's just two colors, right? So 50-50%. And people go ahead and they bet on black. So it goes, yeah, they scored, yeah, it was good, they got the prize. So they can choose another bet. And they can keep going on black, and sometimes they score, sometimes they miss. It's going to be like an independent series of events, right? The events are independent. But check this out. First, remember what we just talked about here. When people see one, two, three times the result being black, not white, they think the probability of white next time is larger. And so many people will bet on white. And there's no guarantee that it's going to be white. So it's just like it can happen, but in general, it may not happen, right? So it turns out that people make those mistakes, and the casino knows that. Now, think about this. If you go to this game and you start betting in the way that I'm just going to tell you, so let's suppose you do this. First one, first time you get 10 bucks on black. You can score or you can miss, you don't know. But anyway, the next time you go ahead and you put $20 or 20 reais in black. You can score, you can miss. The next time you put 40 reais. And you keep doing like that. At any time, you put twice as much money in a bet than you did before. If you start doing that, anytime you score, like after 5 or 6 times, when you score, when you get it right, the amount you're going to make it is larger than whatever you have bet before, right? Because you're doubling your bets all the time, right? If you do something like this, the casino kick you out because they know you are betting in a way that they will lose. They just don't accept that. Can you believe this? Se você chegar no cassino e começar a apostar assim, 10 reais que vai sair a cor preta, vai sair branca ou sai preta, não interessa. Na segunda vez você coloca 20 reais. Na terceira vez você coloca 40. Na quarta vez você coloca 80. Na quinta vez você coloca 160. Se você começar a fazer isso, we call that progressive betting, the casino know he's going to lose. So what he does, he stops you. He says, you are not welcome here anymore. You are out. You can't do that. It's not fair. So look at this. They can do whatever they want to provoke you or to lead you into mistakes. But if you use probabilities and your knowledge to beat them, you are kicked out. So that's why I would never go to a casino. Don't try and do that. They can be very nasty to you. Não tente fazer isso num cassino, tá, gente? Pode ser até o cassino do seu bairro aí, aquele que funciona escondido. Se você postar em qualquer lugar desse jeito, A chance de alguém quebrar o seu nariz é bem grande. All right. But then again, knowledge of probabilities and knowledge of the human psychology, right? So casinos make money because they know people. They know how people make mistakes and they create the perfect trap for them. You know, casino should be a synonym for trap. Você vê a palavra cassino, você deveria entender como um sinônimo de cilada. Você vai perder. 70, 85% das pessoas que entram no cassino perdem dinheiro. Tem alguns poucos que saem, algumas vezes por sorte, outras vezes porque fizeram alguma coisa muito errada e não foram pegos. All right, then. Any other question about the exercises? All right, guys. So think about what we just done, okay? We talked about cognitive biases. And I would like at least one of you to give me like a simple description of what cognitive biases are. Pelo menos um de vocês me deu uma descrição assim bem simples, pode ser em português, inglês, francês ou alemão. Escreve aí para mim o que é um viés cognitivo, por favor. All right. Who's going to be our volunteer? If I don't have a volunteer, I will invite someone. Come on, guys, girls. Who's going to give me a brief description of what a cognitive bias is? Vamos tentar aqui com David. Oh, someone just wrote down here. So João Romeu has written down here. Tendências que normalmente induzem ao erro. Tá quase. Yuri tentou. É um erro de interpretação do sistema cognitivo. Também. Então, os dois estão mais ou menos na linha certa, tá, gente? Um viés cognitivo é uma tendência de raciocínio equivocado. É um deslize racional. É isso mesmo, Ian. É um deslize racional. É uma tendência a derrapar. E isso não é cultural. Um padrão de desvio do racional. Yeah, that's good. That's a good description. So, we all have them. We can't escape them. Even if you know you have cognitive bias, you can't get rid of it. It's just like being short-sighted. Se você é míope, saber que você é míope não faz o seu olho consertar a visão para você enxergar direito. Você continua sendo míope. Você tem que usar óculos. All right, so knowing about cognitive bias doesn't make us, rid of, don't get us rid of them. O Lucas ainda colocou aqui, padrão sistemático de desvio ou distorção na forma como as pessoas processam informações. Yeah, this is perfect, but you guys found that in the internet, obviously, right? Come on, Lucas, this description is not yours, is it? Essa descrição aí eu acho que não é sua não, Lucas. Será que era? Você tinha escolhido essa... kinda. Okay. I'm gonna give you a break on that one. All right. So let's go then to try and finish the prospect theory discussion. Okay? All right, then. Let me share here my entire screen with you. And then I'm gonna go here and show you this fella here. Okay, all right. So we were talking about, please confirm to me that you can see the diagram, the two diagrams for the prospect theory. Can you see that? Can you guys see that? Now you can see that I haven't opened up hundreds of pages. Can you see the prospect theory on your screen?
Yes, we can see.
All right, thanks. Now, let's remember what are the messages, some of the main messages in the prospect theory. First one is that we have like this subjective transformation of probabilities. When people tell you that something is 5% likely, you somehow understand that it's like 10 or 12 or 15. So you tend to overestimate how likely something is when you are given small probabilities. If someone tells you that the chance of uh, scoring Mega Sena, getting the prize for Mega Sena, they'll tell you it's 0.00000000001, and then you say, well, it's not that bad. So we tend to think that even small probabilities are respectable or good enough because they are not zero. Okay, so small probabilities, we tend to overestimate that. When we are given, on the other hand, when we are given large probabilities, but when they are not 100%, we feel frustrated about it. So if I tell you, oh, don't worry, by watching this class, the chance of getting hit by a bullet when you're watching this class is less than 1%. Now, suppose that I told you this the first day of class. Come on. Imagine this, guys. No primeiro dia de sala de aula dessa disciplina, eu falo assim, pessoal, olha, essa disciplina é boa e a chance de você levar um tiro e morrer enquanto você está fazendo essa disciplina é de menos de 1%. Well, that information is correct, by the way. Yes, it's very unlikely that you're going to catch a bullet by just watching this class. But if I tell you this information, you're going to ask yourself, what the heck? I was not here to be shot at. Mesmo que eu te diga que uma probabilidade é muito pequena, mas ó, tem 99,9% de chance de você não morrer enquanto você estiver assistindo essa. Como assim? Quer dizer que não é 100%? So we get frustrated when things are not perfectly certain. So we tend to underestimate how likely something is when it's close to, but not 100%. Okay? So this is the weighting function probability. It tells you that we tend to misinterpret information about probability. All right? Now, the other message that we have is with the diagram on your left. The first message goes like this. To talk about gains, our satisfaction is getting larger if we get more money. So, se você ganhar mais dinheiro, o seu nível de satisfação, se você ganhar um prêmio cada vez maior, seu nível de satisfação vai aumentando, mas ele não aumenta tão rápido. When you're talking about losses, now losing something will make your satisfaction go down really faster, much faster than the opposite, right? So gains, they please you less than losses hurt you. Okay, so that would be a good description. Let me see here because there is someone else still coming. All right, let me see. Oh, Caio has a question. Go ahead, Caio.
What's a good way to actually measure objectively satisfaction levels?
What do you mean by what is a good way? I mean,
Like
it's
how do researchers measure people's satisfaction levels? Do they ask that in a survey? How do they measure like
oh,
when
how did
someone
they
has a
get to
higher or
this?
lower? Yes.
Uh,
How do you get to the number?
okay, how did they get this number? Right. Okay, so the kind of experiments that they had to perform was to say how likely you were to take some bets depending on the price that you could get. So they realized that after winning a certain amount, you would only take more bets if the prices were huge, huge, huge. So it's like you get satisfied fast after you gain, right? But the opposite happens when you lose. When you make mistakes and you lose money, you are willing to take more bets to try and recover. So the way they measure this kind of hurt or benefit that people feel, it's like they submit you to sequential choices, and they observe how how much you value those positions that you have. By the way, this question is very good, Caio, because it tells us why the name of the theory is the prospect theory. A teoria do prospecto, a teoria da perspectiva, o que ela diz no final das contas é assim: o ponto em que você está interessa para o que você observa. So, if you look at this, the right-hand side of the diagram here, well, if you're talking about gains, people will behave in a specific way. But if you're talking about losses, people will feel losses in different ways. So the perspective matters. The point in which, from which you were observing or you are trying to evaluate this phenomena matters to you. So this is kind of why the theory is called the prospect theory, okay? So another way to express that is with the expression loss aversion. Aversão a perdas. É diferente de aversão a risco, gente. Aversão a risco é assim, é um pensamento racional. Se alguém te oferece uma hipótese em que você corre risco, você só vai aceitar aquela aposta ou aquela situação se o preço, se o prêmio valer a pena. Se for um prêmio realmente muito bom, que pague pelo desconforto do risco. Todos nós preferimos a certeza. Então, a aversão a risco é uma coisa racional. Mas quando a gente fala aversão à perda, a gente está falando assim, que o temor de perder é muito maior e a dor da perda é muito mais eloquente do que um ganho proporcional. Then we call that loss aversion, okay? And to express this, we say, if we are very rich, we are not willing to bet. If we are very poor and we are going through hell in life, we take all sorts of bets. Quando a gente é pobre, quando a gente está lascado, a gente aposta no jogo do bicho, a gente joga na Mega Sena, a gente aposta em time de futebol, a gente aposta com os amigos. É como se a gente já está perdendo tanto que qualquer coisa que eu ganhar já me ajuda a me colocar numa posição melhor. Perdido por um, perdido por mil. Sabe aquela história? Now, if you are winning, you say, I want to protect what I have. So you tend to avoid bets, okay? I think there is someone else here to ask a question. Go ahead, Mateus.
If the risk is high, the earn will be high. So the way that people get happy will be high. The line will be higher than this one.
I couldn't understand. Can you try and repeat, or maybe speak in Portuguese? Which one you prefer?
I would like to repeat, like, if the risks are high, the earn will be high. So the line should be higher than this one on your screen.
Let me go back to the screen. You're talking about this side here, right?
Right.
Okay, so what this thing is telling me is goes like this. If you win 20 reais, you're gonna get happy. But if you win 40 reais, you're not gonna get twice as happy. You're gonna get happier, but not twice as much. Então, se você ganhar 20 reais, você vai ficar feliz. Se você ganhar 40 reais, você vai ficar mais feliz. Mas se você não vai ficar o dobro de feliz. So it tells us that people get satisfied more easily when we're talking about gains. Now, if you're talking about losses, você perder 20, você vai ficar muito triste. Se você perder 40, você também vai ficar muito triste, mas a questão é que perder 20 te dá um sofrimento maior do que ganhar 20. Let's see. Someone else wrote down here. Ah, entendi agora. All right, Matheus. Thanks. All right. So, loss aversion. We hate losses much more profoundly than we like gains, okay? So this is the third important message that we have in this thing. All right. Now, why do we study this kind of things? Why do we study the prospect theory? What the prospect theory has to offer to economics and to life in general? Por que a teoria do prospecto, ou teoria da perspectiva, é estudada? O que ela traz de ganho para as pessoas, para a nossa compreensão do comportamento humano? Okay? So let's have a look at some of those, okay? The first one, in economics, specifically in economics, we have more and more models or theories that assume people getting satisfaction not only from their consumption levels, but from eventual deviations from an expected volume or quality of consumption flows. Vou traduzir isso para português. Nos modelos mais sofisticados da economia, a gente passa a descrever o ser humano não como uma pessoa que adquire satisfação pelo volume de bens e serviços que ele consome. Mas, na verdade, por quanto a mais ou a menos que ele consome comparado com o que ele esperava consumir. Comparado com a média dos seus vizinhos, comparado com a média dos seus parentes. Então, um cara pode estar ganhando um salário de 5 mil reais e se sentindo um rato de esgoto, de tristeza, de frustração, porque todos os irmãos dele estão ganhando mais de 10 mil reais. You see? So it turns out that this kind of description, how people behave, it's more likely, it's closer to reality than just to say, oh, if you consume the equivalent of having a 5,000 reais income, then you're going to get pretty happy, independently on what happens to other people. That is not the best way to describe human behavior. Então, em termos da economia, modelos que queiram se aproximar do comportamento humano, mas eles tendem a fazer com que o grau de satisfação de uma pessoa não seja dependente do volume de bens e serviços consumidos, que é a hipótese padrão, né? A hipótese mais assumida nos modelos econômicos. Aí eles falam assim, não, a gente precisa de um modelo mais realista. Na verdade, as pessoas ficam mais felizes quando elas recebem mais do que um determinado patamar. And that may be what their parents expected or what their neighbors make. I don't know. It has to be like a standard. If we overcome such a standard, we feel like we are doing great. All right. So in economics, you have a whole generation of models that tend to be more closer to reality. Okay. Now the second point. These things you can see all the time, especially with people who are unexperienced at investing. So, suppose that an investor buys shares of two companies. Então, um cara vai lá e compra ações de duas empresas. One of them goes up, and he has like a 20% gain. Então, uma das ações sobe, tem 20% de ganho. O que o cara faz? Ele fala, wow, that's great, let me sell it. Let me just get the money, put it in my pocket. As pessoas que ganham elas tendem a realizar o seu investimento, sair o mais rápido possível para garantir que depois a maré não vire e eles percam os ganhos. So, if you are not experienced at investing, there's a good chance that you're gonna sell your stocks earlier than what you should. So, the stocks could go up much more than 20%. But somehow you say, oh, 20% is good enough, let's just get out of here. The opposite happens when you lose money. So if you buy stocks from Petrobras, for example, and they fell 20 or maybe 30%. So what you think? Well, you think something like this. Oh, they fell so much, I'm going to even buy more because now they can only go up. Quando uma determinada aposta que você fez dá errado, a pessoa fala: ah, mas agora está tão barato que agora vale a pena até dobrar a aposta. Eu vou comprar mais daquela. And those are most of the times independent events. So you can keep going back, like you keep losing more and more money. It goes down further 20, 30, 40%. And you keep convincing yourself that, wow, it's really cheap now, so I'm going to buy more. So people tend to make those mistakes. And if you look at those behaviors, they are perfectly in line with the prospect theory. Quando você está ganhando, você fala, tá ótimo. Mesmo que a promessa de ganhar mais, você fala assim, ah, isso não vai me satisfazer tanto. Você tenta sair. Quando você está perdendo, você fala assim, eu vou dobrar a aposta. Eu vou me expor ainda mais a risco. So that explained the format of that diagram we have just seen, right? Now, two other circumstances in which you can see the prospect theory at work is when people were analyzing, evaluating projects. Now, I know that many of you will not understand exactly what I'm saying, but it goes like this. When you are evaluating a new project, like a new business or an investment to create a building, someone is proposing you to be a partner in a new hotel or something like this. Então, imagine que alguém está te propondo montar um negócio junto com você, montar um restaurante, montar um hotel junto com você e tal. So how do you evaluate that? Most of the times, you tend to create expectations about how much money you're going to make over time. And then you calculate how much money you would make over the next 10 years or something like this. A maior parte das vezes, você cria um fluxo de qual vão ser os seus ganhos, seus gastos e seus ganhos em 10 anos. We take those numbers and we kind of sum them up in discounted value, and we call that net present value. A gente calcula o valor presente líquido. Traz todos a valor de hoje, descontando uma taxa de juros, fala quanto que vale esse investimento. Now, when you do that, you are making predictions. Some of those predictions may not come up, they may not happen. So you should work with scenarios. And good project evaluation does exactly like that. Então, se você quiser alguém que realmente faz avaliação de um projeto, ele faz a projeção do fluxo de caixa, mas ele faz o cenário otimista, o cenário médio e o cenário pessimista. So people work with scenarios so that they have a better glimpse of how much they could lose by betting on a specific project. So this is prospect theory all over. Why people work with scenarios? Because we are loss averse. We hate losing. So we want to check out what would be the worst case scenario. A gente quer saber qual seria o pior cenário possível para se precaver, né? Para saber se realmente vale a pena entrar. Right. One more piece of evidence that the prospect theory really works, Well, turns out that all the time you have people coming and saying, oh, you want to buy shares from such and such? This is going to be the next Google. This is going to be the next Amazon. Então, toda hora as pessoas te apresentam oportunidades de investimento e para te convencer fala assim, ah, esse daí vai ser o próximo Google, esse cara vai ser o próximo YouTube. The chances of that happening are very, very small, but investors take them all the time. Então, os investidores tendem a aceitar, mesmo que a probabilidade seja muito pequena, eles fazem uma espécie de uma pescaria. Eu vou pegar vários projetos que prometem ser a próxima Google e em alguns deles eu posso até ganhar muito dinheiro. But then again, the probabilities are actually very, very small. And that does not prevent us from taking the bet. Mesmo quando a probabilidade é muito pequena, mesmo os investidores profissionais acabam indo lá e apostando naquilo. But then again, this class is about global affairs, global issues, right? So let's not talk only about prospect theory and how people take bets, either at casinos or in the stock market. Let's think about a real huge problem that we are having, and it is a global problem. Obviously, we are talking about global warming. Aquecimento global, gente, a maior parte das pessoas já compreende que não se trata de uma conspiração de cientistas para mudar nada, que está acontecendo. Ainda existe alguma discussão, algumas pessoas que relutam em reconhecer que a culpa pelo aquecimento global é do ser humano. Ainda tem gente. Mas mesmo essas pessoas sabem que está acontecendo e que a gente vai ter problemas muito graves a partir do aquecimento global. Now, here comes this huge challenge. Because on one hand, you have scientists. And on the other hand, you have regular people like you and me. Ok? Então, de um lado tem os cientistas e a ciência. E do outro lado tem pessoas normais como eu e você. Now, here comes the scientists. What they can tell you. They can tell you that if we do all they are saying, the chance of a disaster will be reduced. But that for us, regular people, it's not good enough. Então, imagina alguém que fala assim, olha, se você fizer tudo que eu disser, a probabilidade do pior cenário possível vai cair de 10% para 3%. If I tell you this, and I try to convince you to change the way you live, you're going to say, oh, give me a break. This is not good enough. I'm going to keep doing whatever I do. As pessoas não se sentem convencidas de que é uma boa fazer alguma coisa, porque você está reduzindo a probabilidade do pior cenário possível de 10% para 3%. This is not good enough. If this is not to reduce to 0%, then it's not worth it. As pessoas tendem a não aceitar que já seria uma grande coisa se a gente reduzisse a probabilidade, mesmo que a gente não levasse a zero. Now, the scientists who have been studying global warming for decades now, they keep telling us it's almost, there's no escape. We are going to have to face it. The problem or the question is if we're going to have the worst time or some bad time. But we are going to have some problems. We're going to have problems with global warming. We're going to have problems with the way we grow food. We're going to have problems with lack of water. So many of our water reserves will dry out. We're going to have problems with people moving from an entire region and try to get into another country. Então a gente vai ter problemas com a produtividade da produção de alimentos, a gente vai ter problemas com a falta d'água, com a escassez de água, as reservas, boa parte das reservas devem secar, a gente vai ter problema para lidar com água, a gente vai ter populações todas tendo que migrar por causa de mudanças climáticas. So these are huge problems. They can be terrible or they can be only very bad. And that, to decide that, we have to start making changes right now. But people don't move if you tell them the truth. And the truth is, we cannot eliminate those probabilities. We can only lower them. A gente não pode eliminar as probabilidades, a gente só pode reduzi-las. Someone, go ahead, Caio, let me see.
Aren't we also discouraged to act by the fact that we believe that as individuals we have such a little impact in moving the needle?
Oh yeah, this is a great point too. It's called a drop in a bucket. Existe essa expressão, sabe, Caio, que fala assim, como se fosse uma gotinha no balde. A gente acha que a participação individual é pequena demais. Em português é assim, mandorinha só não faz verão. So yeah, many of us will do nothing because we think that, it's useless. No one is doing. So I'm going to be the only one. This thing happens when we talk about dengue. We keep showing people graphics, diagrams about dengue. We keep having propaganda in marketing on TV and on social media about dengue. People know how to fight the mosquitoes. They know. Most of the times they do nothing because they think it's going to be only them. It's only me. No one else here in my neighborhood has done anything. The mosquitoes are still coming to my place. Então o cara fala assim, eu vou tirar a água, os poços de água da minha casa. Não vai adiantar nada, porque minha vizinhança toda está fazendo. Ninguém está fazendo nada. Os mosquitos continuam vindo para minha casa. Yeah, you're right. This is a huge problem. And this is also a cognitive bias, okay? We feel like our individual contribution is so small that it's going to be useless. Yeah, that's true. Now, notice what I'm saying here. When scientists in good faith, telling the entire truth, they cannot provide reassurance that any foreseeable policy will avoid disaster. Now, it turns out that for some people, it's doom. It's worthless. Se um cientista chega com toda a tranquilidade, fala assim, resolver o problema de aquecimento global é impossível. Ele está aí. O que a gente pode é reduzir a probabilidade das piores consequências. If they say that out loud, the way I'm saying, most of the people will say, all right, so it's useless. And we still have to do, still have to move. So many scientists prefer not to say that. They keep telling you how bad can it get. Então, os cientistas, a maior parte deles, ficam tentando convencer as pessoas, dizendo o pior cenário possível. Qual que é o pior cenário possível? Mas o pior cenário possível talvez nem seja o mais provável. O problema é que eles têm medo de falar a verdade. A verdade é dizer assim, não dá para resolver. A gente só pode atenuar. E ele acha que, ao dizer isso, ninguém se move. Então ele fala assim, então eu vou ficar falando do que pode ser o desastre. So it looks like a game in which people choose their strategies and both don't believe the other, right? Now, notice also that moving towards reducing global warming, it does causes economic losses right now. Então, adaptar a sua empresa para que ela emita menos carbono, para que ela gaste menos energia elétrica, para que ela use mais a água, no início custa dinheiro. As time goes, you end up saving money. But initially, it costs you money. So we have talked about this earlier tonight. We talk about present bias, remember? O viés presente. A gente fala assim, peraí, mas se eu vou perder agora, mesmo que eu vá ganhar no futuro, agir contra o sacrifício agora é muito fácil. Eu não vou fazer isso agora, deixa para depois. So we tend to postpone whatever measure we are supposed to take and end up procrastinating. We don't want to suffer the losses right now. And by doing that, we end up having larger losses in the future. That's what we are all so concerned, okay? Now, so we talked about the prospect theory and global warming. You can see how it affects the way scientists communicate. It affects how people understand the message from science. It affects how business people will or will not react to the knowledge about global warming, right? Okay. Now let's look at another huge issue of our time, migration. Now, come on, guys. You haven't felt this here because we live in Recife. But suppose that you live in Roraima. Suppose that you live in Italy or that you live in Turkey. Se você mora em Roraima, você está vendo aquela quantidade enorme de venezuelanos chegar toda hora na fronteira. Muitos deles em desespero, situações dramáticas. Se você mora na Itália, você está vendo famílias inteiras se enfiarem num bote e tentar cruzar o Mediterrâneo com uma chance enorme de morrer. Mas está lá, crianças, velhos, adultos, gente de toda idade, tentando de toda forma chegar na Europa. So migration is a huge problem today, right? Of our time, a problem of our time. Now let's look at prospect theory and try to see how this thing can affect the problem of migration, okay? Now, first, let's look from the perspective of the Brazilian people or the American people or the Italian people, the countries who are receiving migration, okay? Now, if you are an American person and you look at this Mexican immigrant crossing the frontier, you know that it is very, very unlikely that this person will take your job, okay? This person doesn't even speak English. He doesn't have a good education. He hasn't developed the skills that you need to take your job. But still, you look at that guy and say, oh, come on. The probability that this guy will take my job is very small. But what prospect theory tells us about small probabilities? Yeah, we tend to overestimate them. If someone tells you that the probability that that guy will take your job is 1%, you may actually understand it is 10%. So you're going to fight them. You're going to say, I don't want those guys here. Send them home. I don't care what they're going through. I don't care how much they are sacrificing to cross the border. Just send them home. As an American person, and sometimes as a Brazilian person, as an Italian person, you just don't want to hear it. You say, just get out of my country. All right? So it is loss aversion, and it is the overweighting of small probabilities. You don't want to lose, and even if the probability of losing is small, we think that they are bigger than they really are. Now, Let's look at the other side. Think as an illegal Mexican immigrant. These guys, they know how low their chances are of actually crossing the border, making it at the United States. They know how very small probability it is. But what we know about probabilities, small probabilities, we tend to overestimate them. So they keep thinking, if I make it, I'm going to have money enough to sustain my whole family for 3 or 4 years. So they don't think about probabilities at all. If the probability is very small, they're going to make it. They overestimate that probability, or they behave as if the probability was larger. And that happens to even Brazilian people. Some Brazilian people try to cross the border with the United States coming from Mexico too. It is desperation. What about losses? Well, which loss is larger? Being deported or never even trying to get into the United States? So the Mexican people say, well, if they get me, uh, yeah, they're going to send me home. It's not that bad. I may be arrested for a few months, maybe a year, but even when I'm arrested, they're going to feed me. I'm going to have like somewhere to sleep. Depending on how poor you are, it's not that bad. It's terrible to say that, but people make calculations. They say, oh, you know what? I prefer risking getting caught and deported than never even trying. Once more, people are not so good at calculating probabilities. The way we make decisions is very much described by the prospect theory. So if we have to deal with this problem, you have to understand how people think about the problem. All right? To solve the problem, we better understand how people involved in the problem are thinking. Okay? Does that make sense? All right, I have this here, but this is going to be like a homework for you guys. I'm going to send you later this address here at YouTube, and I want you guys to take a look at this video. It's a short one. Take a look. It's just like 3 minutes. But then, oh, after this video, I want you guys to think about these two expressions here: overconfidence and loss aversion. Então, é uma autoconfiança excessiva, de um lado, e aversão à perda do outro. All right, so this is talking about entrepreneurship. É uma discussão sobre empreendedorismo, sobre as pessoas que tentam montar uma nova empresa e tal. And then this guy here is no one else than Daniel Kahneman, the guy who created prospect theory. Okay, I'm going to send you this link later, and I want you guys to watch it and try to think about these 3 questions. Okay, we're going to try and go back to it later. And let me ask you, can you guys hear me? It started raining here at my place. I'm concerned that my internet connection may fail. So let me just make sure that you guys can hear me now. Tá todo mundo me ouvindo? Tá, né? Ótimo. Obrigado, Lídio. Obrigado, João. Okay. Now we're going to keep moving, and if my connection goes down, please forgive me. It's because it is raining a lot. It's like really coming down here. I live in Aldeia, Camaragibe, and I know how many times the energy goes off here. But any questions about the prospect theory, about migration, and about global warming, its relation to prospect theory. You guys understand have understood the message, right? In order to think about these huge problems, we have to consider how the people involved are thinking, right? And prospect theory is a very, very good approximation to how people make decisions about the risks involved in those decisions, okay? All right, good. So let me show you now this other set of class notes. I'm not going to go very further way with them. I'm just going to start tonight, but we're going to have time to talk about them later, okay? So let me, even before I give you all the definitions, let me just show you what nudge is about, okay? All right, so let's have a look at this. So what you guys can see, yes, it is the men's room. A gente está falando de um banheiro masculino, um mictório. Now, what you see right in the middle, it's like a picture. It's like, a plastic illustration of a fly. Então eles vão lá e colocam assim um desenhinho, que dá para ver que é um desenho, que não é real, um desenho de uma mosca. And the guys go in the men's room, to pee, and they will just look and say, oh, ha, yeah, it's funny. I'm going to try and reach that fly. So they aim and they end up making less of a mess in the men's room. So it's a joke, right? It's not harming anyone. And if you ask me, do these kind of things work? Do they work? Yes, they do. You end up having a positive effect just by creating this sort of intervention. Let me show you some more examples, okay? So this is nudge. Now look at this. Suppose that you are in a bus stop, okay? Você está lá na parada do ônibus. And then you look at your side and you see this announcement say, who is the best player in the world? And you can choose. It is Ronaldo or Messi. By the way, in this case here, they are talking about Cristiano Ronaldo, not our Ronaldo. But anyway, so you see, in order to vote in this, survey, in this bet, you have to use your cigarettes bit, right? Então você tem que usar ali, ó, a guimba do cigarro para colocar o seu voto. Now you may look at this and say, does this thing will cause any harm to anyone? Do people will people start smoking because of this? No, I don't think so. Eu não acho que não vai causar mal a ninguém. Eu não acho que uma pessoa vai começar a fumar só porque pode votar nessa brincadeirinha. So the thing is like, it's just a joke. But as you can see, it works. People don't throw the cigarette butts on the streets because of that. So it works. You help cleaning out the streets just by having this kind of fun. All right, no one is harmed. And you don't force anyone to participate. It's just there. And people will laugh at it and participate. As a result, the streets are cleaner. All right. Now, this is one of my favorites. Check this out, guys. Now, let me tell you that the rolling stairs, they are still working. You can take the rolling stairs. Você pode subir na escada rolante, não tem problema. But they just created this illustration. I mean, the first time people look at this, the first reaction is to smile, So you're not making anyone feel bad about this. You're just creating this environment when people say, yeah, yeah, I'm not that athlete anymore, but yeah, I can save here some energy and I can, have some more movement in my day just by taking the stairs. By the way, this illustration is an actual uh, subway station in Germany, and it's famous all over the world. It works, by the way. Lots and lots of people will take the stairs, the regular stairs, even though the rolling stairs are working. Okay, so you don't force people to participate, but you just create this thing, and people freely will join. Now, have a look at this. I know that some people, some Brazilian people, when they look at this, they have a hard time understanding. What is this a picture showing you? Let me see if you guys can understand. What can you see in this picture?
Que o lado esquerdo da escada seria para quem quer andar com mais pressa do que o lado direito, que a pessoa pode simplesmente ir parado na escada rolante.
Exactly. Yeah. And this is so hard to happen in Brazil. I mean, I don't know. I don't think we are so self-aware as in other countries. You know, we are not as uh, careful on how to not harm anyone. No resto do mundo, eu me lembro de as pessoas passarem por mim assim, numa fileira de supermercado, e só por estarem passando perto falarem com licença. Não era para eu sair da frente, eu não estava na frente nem nada, mas era só como se falasse, para você não se assustar, eu estou passando aqui, com licença. E eu falava assim, puxa, esse povo é muito educado. But it's not politeness. It's like people are really self-aware on not harming anyone else, on not causing some other people problem, you know? People are really concerned about that. And in this rolling stairs you see there, it's like if you want to walk faster, take the left lane. Otherwise, I'm gonna stick around here and I'm not in a hurry, so I'm gonna stop here. So it's like a more efficient way of organizing the space, right? And guess what? It does work. People do participate when they look at this. This one is a very simple one, and I saw it in Brazil sometimes. Now, suppose that you are in the toilet, and just at the moment when you leave the cabin, you see this huge sign that says 95% of the people don't wash their hands properly after using the toilet. Dizendo, olha só, 95% das pessoas não lavam as suas mãos de maneira apropriada quando acabam de usar o banheiro. So it is information. You may know that. But here, the information is presented to you in the exact moment you need it. So it's the timing that you get the information. O momento que você recebe a informação é o momento exato que você precisa para mudar o seu comportamento. So you see, we are always talking about these sort of interventions, and they are not harmful, they are not aggressive, they just have like a little help so that you can make a better decision for yourself. You see? It's not anyone else's interest aside from yours. Não é para o bem dos outros que eles estão fazendo, eles estão tentando te ajudar. All right. You guys have seen this in self-service restaurants all over the place, right? Aqueles restaurantes self-service colocam o prato que é do tamanho de uma bacia. Guess what? This is persuasion. This is not nudge. People are not trying to help you there. They're trying to harm you. They want you to do what is best for them. Now, if you yourself buy to your house smaller plates like this, if you buy plates like this to your house, you will get fit because this sort of thing work. Esse tipo de ajudinha que a gente faz, se a gente comprar pratos menores, a gente come um pouquinho menos, sim, acontece. A gente não é assim tão esperto, a gente acaba se acostumando com algumas coisas dessa. Now look at this picture here. Do you think this is a good picture? Do you think this is nudge? Dá para chamar isso de um empurrãozinho para fazer a coisa certa? By the way, let me ask you. You guys can see what the picture depicts, right? So this is a plastic bag, but the handle here goes right at the point in which you would have this turtle's neck, right? So we are holding the turtle by the neck. And then comes the message. Plastic bags kill. Keep our oceans clean, right? Now, think about this for a while. Is this a nudge? Será que isso é só um empurrãozinho? Do you think this picture could cause harm to any person? Você acha que tem alguma pessoa que poderia ser prejudicada por uma imagem como essa? What do you think, guys? Do you think this is harmless or do you think this is kind of a dangerous one? Yeah, Lucas was right at the point here. Suppose that you are taking this bag and you're taking right in front a children, a child, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 years old. When they look at an image like that, it is actually a very violent image. So I don't think this is nudge. This is not nudge anymore. I mean, we are not talking about intentions here, okay? We are asking ourselves, do you think this is like a harmless help from someone who is trying to, improve things? Well, the intention may be very good, but the way this thing is presented, it is kind of a little bit further the line, right? It's like you crossed the line. All right, so next time we're going to describe carefully what nudges are, okay? What exactly they are, how they work, and especially we're going to talk about how nudges must be used in an ethical way. What are the ethical principles to nudge, to help people making better decisions, okay? So we're going to pick it up next time from that point. All right, guys, so let me stop here this presentation. Check out if you have any questions. And I'm going to stop recording right now. And I'm going to be here for a few more minutes if you want to ask me questions or make a comment. Otherwise, I'll see you next time.